Good afternoon, my friends, and welcome to the first ever edition of Grim Tidings, which is a new format of video content where it's a little more informal. It's a little more, dare I say, personalized. I'm here in my gas station sunglasses. I'm outside enjoying a beautiful day, and I'm spending some time with you. And I'll continue making other theory videos and other idea videos and, of course, gameplay videos, but I'll continue doing all that stuff, in front of my computer with all the facts at hand. And I also, though, want to do something a little more informal and a little more chit-chatty to just kind of bounce ideas off of you and hang out with you, share some thoughts on some pressing issues of our time in the game we all love. And what we're here to talk about today is whether Companion is in fact the worst mechanic ever conceived of and ever brought to us in the beloved game that we are all here to talk about, Magic the Gathering. Now, this, of course, if you haven't seen it, I'll link it in the description below, is based off of the claim made by Saffron Olive in a recent video where he does, in fact, make the case, and he makes it very well. I think whether or not you agree with him, you have to give him that. He makes the case very well that Companion is, in fact, the worst mechanic of all time. And I'm here to give you my thoughts on it. I've been asked by the fine folks on my Patreon Discord to weigh in on this, so thank you so much to the Patreons who do make this content possible. Thanks to everybody who's viewing. Thanks to the people who have donated via PayPal as well. I don't say that often enough. I appreciate you just as much as anybody else, my friends. And yeah, let's talk about Companion, and I'm going to get into the theory a little bit, but again, this is going to be a little more freeform than perhaps the fact-based content that you're used to. So if you want to see more segments like this, more segments of Grim Tidings where I'm just hanging out outside, I'm going to be doing this in all weather, by the way. I'm not limited to only the nice days, believe me. I'll be out here in the rain and the snow, and we've got that too, for the Grim Tidings. But if you like this content, please be sure to let me know in the comments below and give a thumbs up. But without further ado, let's talk about Companion. So the first thing I'll tell you is just my own feelings, just my own experiences. Again, this is more of a off-the-cuff, informal, shooting from the hip type of segment for you, and just personally, my desire to play has never been this low with the exception of the Oko meta. So I came into Modern sometime early in 2017 is when I officially, I've been an on and off kitchen table casual almost my whole life since I was a little kid. And, on, off again, and eventually when I came on in 2017, I said, you know what? There's a lot of actual formats that exist, so I kind of talked my friends into saying, let's convert our kitchen table decks to Modern. We dabbled in Modern. I was a noob, I was a casual for a while, and then I guess I got serious after, probably the better part of a year is when I started taking Modern more seriously, and ever since then, I have been playing whenever I could. Very busy guy, and that's part of why this discussion is actually so important right now, because right now, people either have more free time than they ever had in the past, or less free time than they normally have. So in other words, we are either quarantined through the pandemic or we are working through the pandemic, and for those of us in the latter camp, we often have either increased hours at work or less access to things that otherwise give us free time, like childcare or, just generic help from friends and family. I myself fall into the latter camp, but no matter which camp you fall into, the state of the game and any downfalls we might be experiencing relative to the state of the game are exacerbated right now. Either you have more time to play, so the failings and flaws are more evident, or again, you have less time to play, and therefore you have to jump through more hoops to get the time to play, and if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, you're not going to do it. So anyway, that's why it's really important to talk about this, and my feelings, like I said at the beginning of this part, just telling you the truth. The only time I've ever wanted to play less was the Oko meta. I want to play around the same amount as I did during the Oko meta. Even during Hogak meta, I was always like, oh, can I get time to play today? I really want to get a game in today, really want to get a league in today, really want to make another video today if I can. The Hogak meta was warped. Don't get me wrong, it was very warped, it was very much a problem. We needed to take action on that, and we did. But, personally, I didn't mind playing it so much. You knew what you had to beat. The gameplay was quick, and as a BGX player, you might think it's a little bit ironic for me to be advocating for quicker gameplay, but a big problem with Companion right now to me is that not only is the gameplay homogenous, not only is the meta warped around Companions, much like it has been at other times, the games are really, really long. A lot of the recent games I've played have gone to time, and it's not me going to time. It's the opponent going to time, and it's Companion mirrors, it's Lurrus versus Yorion, or it's Lurrus mirrors, and even if both players are playing at a rapid clip, you're talking about, when gameplay's not satisfying, but you can get a league done in a little over an hour, that's one thing. When the gameplay's not satisfying and it takes you 3 hours, I mean, we've got lives to live. We've got other things to do with our time on this mortal coil, right? So that's another strike against Companion in my view. And, when Seth in his video is talking about all the different mechanics that are controversial, ones that most people agree were mistakes and most people agree have warped metas, you're talking about stuff like Dredge and Storm and Phyrexian Mana. Well, you know what? You know what all those things can say for themselves is that they do lead to some pretty rapid gameplay. And I like to be the control deck. I like to be the grindy deck. I like to be, on BGX, I like to be the one playing a normal non-companion BGX deck like Rock, traditional Rock is my favorite, or Jund, or Abzan, or Sultai, and being like, okay, you're trying to set him up, I'm trying to knock him down. You're trying to find a window to go off with your combo or with your go-wide strategy, and I'm trying to interact with you and take over the game. I don't like how everything is resource generating insane pushed value these days. I don't like the really pushed planeswalkers, and sorry Jund fans, that also kind of includes Ren and 6. I certainly don't like how every blue-green card draws a million cards or generates a ton of deterministically powerful value in a fair versus fair matchup these days, and I certainly don't like how Companion just takes everything I just said about resource generation and cranks it up to 14, 15, dare I say even 16 on a scale of 1 to 10. And you may be familiar with my theory about resource generation versus resource denial. As far as I know, this is an original idea to myself, and it's been fleshed out and added to by the fine viewers of this channel. And, I've talked about that at length in the past, but I think that's really key to understanding a lot of what goes on in Modern. We need to make resource denial attractive again. We need to take resource generation and say, in a game with a lot of variance built in, this extreme resource generation tends to be unhealthy when it's saturating the format and when it's attached to some really, really powerful stuff. So I'm getting into the weeds here. You get the point. Let's refocus a little bit and let's talk a little bit about the Companion mechanic specifically and how it lines up on the scale, on the Storm scale, on the scale relative to other busted mechanics. All right, so as I mentioned, we're riffing off of Saffron Olive's video, and he actually has Phyrexian Mana in second and Companion as first, as the most problematic, the most busted, the worst mechanic of all time. I am almost right there with him. I'm almost right there with him. I think he made a great case for it. I agree with the majority of his rankings, but I would actually say that Companion is at best the joint worst. I think it has to share the throne with Phyrexian Mana. And if I'm, gun to head, if you press me to make a decision, I think for now, we still have to say that Phyrexian Mana is the worst mechanic of all time, but Companion is a very close second. And as I said, if you even have any mechanic out right now under our current circumstances that is even remotely viable in the discussion, we've got a huge problem on our hands. So I'm not trying to downplay the issues of Companion at all. But if we look at what Phyrexian Mana brings to the table versus what Companion brings to the table, yes, Companion's very homogenizing. Yes, it generates my own preferences lead toward shorter gameplay than what Companion is generating, and more diverse gameplay, less deterministic gameplay, all of the above. But we really only have two Companions that are clear and present dangers to the Modern format, which is really what I'm focusing on here, and to other Eternal formats, to the best of my knowledge. It's Lurrus and it's Yorion. And yeah, there are big problems, and yeah, I don't like the Companion mechanic, even if the Companions are balanced. I really don't. I think they should be, by definition, fringe. I think it should be like once in a blue moon thing, you're like, oh, whoa, cool, somebody built a mechanic around Companion. But starting with the 8th card in your hand, it can't be thought seized. No, not for me. Feels too much like Commander, does not feel like Constructed. But Phyrexian Mana has its own issues too, and a big problem is homogenization. If you are a deck that does not play black or white, you're probably running Dismember in Modern if you need hard removal. That's just one example, and you might say, well, Dismember is an interactive spell, it's not an overpowered spell. All of that is true, but I'm a mono red prowess player, and there is a reasonable case to be made that we should be like, saying, okay, you want the strengths of a monocolor deck, you want totally painless, consistent mana, you want to, especially now that Canopy lands exist, you want to be able to run all of your Canopy lands at virtually no deck building cost, you want to be able to just free roll Blood Moon or other moon effects in your 75, you want immunity to Field of Ruin, and so on and so forth. Well, why should you get access to a black removal spell in conjunction with all of that? And Dismember is not really a big offender here, but you understand how Phyrexian mana opens Pandora's box to that type of thing. Gutshot is another example, an even less impactful example than Dismember, it must be said, but an example nevertheless. Mutagenic Growth. If you are, again, looking at Mono Red Prowess, some of these all-in versions featuring Kiln Fiend and Blister Coil Weird, and/or Blister Coil Weird, well, they get to play a green pump spell in a mono red deck. Just, again, if we're looking at the mechanic as a whole, this is the type of thing where we really need to recognize just how off the chain this is. You look at Apostle's Blessing. Again, do these cards really warp Modern? No. But we're talking about the principle behind it, and the fact that you're playing a white protection spell in any old deck, in a Simic Infect deck, for example. This is just another example as to why the mechanic itself, big problem, and is the worst mechanic of all time for me. Spellskite is another example of this. We've got, it doesn't feel as egregious, it doesn't feel as much of a color pie violation because it is an artifact, but the effect, the activated ability of Spellskite, was basically assigned blue, and it's a color pie break in that regard. You think back to days of, like Splinter Twin, everybody packing Spellskite. This is a little bit before my time, but, this type of thing is really warping and homogenizing in Phyrexian mana. But if that's as far as it went, if it was just like, okay, we've got a collection of halfway decent spells that kind of transcend the color pie, whatever. This is Modern. We've got a card pool going all the way back into the mists of time. We can handle this, right? It's not that big a deal. But, Gitaxian Probe, Mental Misstep, and to a lesser extent Birthing Pod. Remember, these are all Phyrexian mana cards, and if we're talking about the damage that the mechanic has wrought on Modern and on other formats as a whole, other Eternal formats, and we're talking about Companion right now before they've banned any of the Companion cards. It therefore makes sense to look at Phyrexian mana as a whole, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I cannot imagine playing a Modern with Gitaxian Probe, Mental Misstep, and Birthing Pod legal. Again, Pod is definitely a tier below those. I still don't think Pod should be unbanned, but I'm a ban list conservative and a power creep conservative. I think we should ban more aggressively, we should unban very cautiously, and we should not have been designing such crazy cards in the latter half of 2019, spilling over into 2020. So take all that into consideration. I'm not equating Birthing Pod with the other two, but Birthing Pod is a very scary card, and it's only scary because that Phyrexian mana. It really is. That's a big part of what makes it viable relative to something like Prime Speaker Vannifar, which in many other ways is comparable and just sees almost no play. Sees almost no play even though there's a shell directly designed to exploit it. Yeah, it's just kind of like a tier 3 deck that occasionally you'll run into. Doesn't really make waves in the format. But Gitaxian Probe, Mental Misstep, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me with these cards? I think the mere presence of either one of them, how universally splashable they are, how immensely powerful they are in a vacuum and in certain shells that can really maximize the upsides and minimize the downsides. If either one of those existed and the other one didn't, you still might have a really strong consideration for Phyrexian mana being the most busted of all time. But with both, as much as I think Companion was a massive mistake, and as much as Companion has kind of ebbed away my will to play right now as much as I used to, it's hard for me to look past Git Probe and Mental Misstep. Really is. I think the 1-2 punch of those cards, plus the follow-up, runner-up medal for Birthing Pod, plus all of the other things that I've just mentioned. And then on top of that, you have other cards that you could see as positives, admittedly, from Phyrexian Mana. I think Surgical Extraction, because it's almost always value negative, and because it is a police card, it's a police card. I think you could argue that Surgical being, having multiple downsides, but also being splashable enough that realistically any deck can register it. Yeah, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good safety valve for just about any format. I think a card like Hex Parasite, too, is very, very interesting, It definitely is not busted, and it offers some relatively unique interactive gameplay that also happens to synergize with something like Death Shadow, and I think all of that is great. So Phyrexian Mana has a few glimmers of positivity, but overall, you could argue that Companion has a few glimmers of positivity too. Overall, it is difficult for me to say that Phyrexian Mana is outstripped by Companion. Now, if the format goes like it is for another 2 months and they don't take any action on anything related to Companion, then maybe my opinion will change. It's a little bit hard to say because we are living through the Companion meta right now, but I think if I'm being as objective as I possibly can, I rate Companion as the second worst mechanic of all time, and I rate Phyrexian Mana as the worst mechanic of all time, the biggest mistake of all time, and I think the universally banned and restricted nature of stuff like Mental Misstep and Gitaxian Probe is the best evidence there is for that. But of course, there's a lot of room for nuance. There's a lot of room for subjectivity here too. I'm not going to say anybody's wrong for thinking Companion's the worst mechanic of all time. Really, really, really close to agreeing. But for me, it's the runner-up. And yeah, I think I've said all there that needs to be said about this. So those are the grim tidings of the day, my friends. We are living through what many people, including Saffron Olive, consider to be the worst mechanic of all time and its dominance of all formats. We're living through that as we speak right now. They are not taking action in the upcoming next Monday's upcoming banned and restricted update. They're not taking action in Modern or Pioneer, which I think is a complete disaster. I think they really, really need to do something about that. And I don't think they should ban Mishra's Bauble. If you want to handle Lurrus, you gotta handle Lurrus more directly, either by errating Companion, or by banning Companion altogether, or by banning Lurrus together. And again, maybe this isn't going to win me any friends with my own viewership, because a lot of people love that Lurrus has put BGX back on the map in a big, big way. Specifically, I'm very happy that Lurrus has put Rock back on the map. Rock is an amazing shell for Lurrus. Nobody should be happier than me. And a lot of things about Lurrus are really cool, I like the micro decisions of Mishra's Bauble. I like playing the card Mishra's Bauble as well. I think it's really cool. I like the deck building restriction, like it's fun to brew. But the gameplay, man, I'm like, the idea is cool. I think Lurrus as a card is cool. I think the brewing is cool. But then when I actually sit down to play, I'm like, this isn't fun. This is not fun to play my 5th Lurrus mirror in a 5-round league. And this isn't Sour Grapes either. I haven't gone negative yet, but I haven't played that many leagues. I think I've played 8 leagues with BGX decks, 8 or 9 maybe, since Lurrus has been banned, or since Lurrus has entered the format. No 5-0s, but everything, 3-2 or 4-1, every single thing. So it's not like, oh, I'm losing and now I hate the mechanic. The mechanic's treating me very well. I just don't find the gameplay interesting when it's all Lurrus mirrors or when it's a million Yorion decks. Yorion decks, man, those are misery. Those are misery to face. So, I'm ranting now, I'm way off track. Let's leave the video here. So anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. I'll talk to you soon. Hope everybody out there has a wonderful day.